Hey, Tyler Devine, can you give me a sound check? Ask me how I'm doing.
I can hear you just fine.
All right, and I can hear you too. How are you doing?
Not bad. How about you?
All good. Good morning, everyone. We will get started in just a couple minutes. Need to spotlight Gary's video here real quick. I believe I've been keeping up with everyone as you've joined the Zoom. If you need recording privileges, please drop me a note.
I don't know what spotlight video means, but I'm sure it's really important, Chris. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. It's exactly how it sounds. Spotlight's on you. You won't feel a thing. Okay, Gary, my clock says 11. I see a list of the usual suspects. So I think everyone will start with an opening statement from Gary Barta, and then we'll open it up to some questions. So Gary, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everybody. Happy holidays. For those of you who celebrate it, Merry Christmas. And maybe more importantly, soon to be Happy New Year. I know much has been anticipated about calling it 2021 instead of 2020 for all sorts of reasons. I do have just a few things that I jotted down and wanted to share. Sorry I couldn't join you last night when we had our bowl announcement. was traveling back from Dallas. But just a few things. First of all, from a broader perspective, before I get to the bowl, just thinking back to this summer, actually going way back to March, but certainly since this summer, just the admiration that I have for all of our student athletes and our coaches and athletic trainers and doctors to navigate a pandemic in personal life, but also to try to play sports. And our student athletes have done amazing job with that, going all the way back. And we actually, the fact that not only were we able to play 8 football games, but after an 0-2 start, come back and win 6 in a row. So just proud of our football team. But beyond that, later today you'll hear from Lisa Bluter and from Fran McCaffrey, and we have a doubleheader coming up tomorrow. The women playing Western Illinois and the men playing Purdue, and they've been able to get their season off to a good start. And so again, those student athletes going through it every day. And soon, we still don't have schedules for our Olympic sports. We'll have those soon, but shortly after the first of the year, wrestling and swimming and track and eventually all of our Olympic sports getting underway. So I just can't say enough about how diligent people have been to navigate through the pandemic. And as we're all anticipating for life in general, just waiting for that vaccine to see how it's going to work and how long it's going to take. But in the meantime, we keep moving forward. As it relates to getting invited to the TransPerfect Music City Bowl, again, going back to when we started the season, the fact that we're in postseason play is an amazing feat. Playing a good Missouri team, have had a chance to watch them. They have wins over Arkansas and Kentucky and a few other. They played a 5-5 record that they ended up with, and they played an all SEC schedule. So I know that our coaches are getting ready for that. I had a chance to talk to Scott Ramsey over the last week, the executive director of the bowl, and we both agreed. I feel bad for our fans that this isn't the Nashville trip that our fans have been waiting for, because I know our fans are excited to participate in the bowl when we can all come and take part in the city. And Scott Ramsey, as executive director, can't wait for the Hawkeyes to come and travel in big numbers. We both agreed that that'll have to come another year. We'll look forward to that. In the meantime, we're grateful for the invitation. And it's going to be an unusual, like everything else in 2020, it's going to be an unusual trip. It's going to be an away game in terms of travel and protocol. We're planning to leave the day before and travel we've become accustomed this year. 4 times we traveled with football, and we left, we flew, we bussed, we went into the hotel bubble, and we played the game and flew back. And it's going to be a trip very similar to that. I know that the bowl committee is going to work hard to make sure the students, while they're there, have a good experience. But safe is going to be important. And then obviously the goal is to win the game. Update on COVID. This morning, as we have every week, we put out our numbers from last week. 443 tests, 14 positives, 14 is up a little bit. I know everybody is aware that Kirk Ferentz was one of those because he chose to share that. And I can tell you that there were other football staff and student athletes in that group. It wasn't entirely football. There were other sports represented in those 14 positives. The team, so the last time the team practiced and met was Tuesday night. And the team now hasn't been together as a group, as a team. Now this is going on day 6. They are all coming back today, and they will all be tested and go through, we'll continue to utilize our University of Iowa testing protocol, but also the Big Ten protocol as we move forward. So everybody returns today. We'll go through our testing. And then as we prepare for the bowl, we'll just carry on with our Big Ten testing protocol. As I mentioned, I was traveling, had a chance to come back last night from Dallas from the college football playoff experience. And it was a great honor to be a part of that. 13 people who have dedicated their lives in different ways being around the sport, showing their expertise, just great human beings, people who are putting in a lot of time and dedicated. So I'm honored to have been a part of that. And then, as importantly, I just want to say thanks to our campus, President Harold, for supporting me in taking on that role. And then right within our department, because I've been gone so much, particularly the last 5 weeks, our Deputy Athletic Director, Barbara Burke, who accepted the invitation to the Bowl last night, but beyond that has been running the day-to-day while I've been away. Then our senior staff, and then Kirk, he and I have stayed in touch. By the way, I spoke to Kirk this morning. I've spoken to him over the last days. Glad to hear that sounds good and is doing well. But again, back to the staff and Kirk and Fran and Lisa and all the coaches understanding while I've been away. So with that, those are just a few of the thoughts I thought I would share. Chris, I'm happy to open up and answer questions.
Got it. All right, Gary, the first question this morning is from Tom Kakert.
Hey, Gary. Question on how the process works when you're inside that CFP bubble. And you knew what was going to happen with the New Year's Six, obviously. Did you kind of know that this was the pecking order that was going to happen for Iowa?
Well, what I did is I was in communication with the bowl reps, like I am every year, talking to them about what they're thinking, depending on when Iowa might become available, who was going to potentially pick us, not pick us. And so I knew that one of the points that everybody was watching is if the Big Ten gets more than one team in the New Year's Six, then that changes who's available and who's not available. So I did not have any conversations over the weekend with the bowl reps, but I knew coming in that it really was a discussion. The three teams after Ohio State were Indiana, Northwestern, and Iowa. And I knew what the Bowls were thinking, depending on what happened. So when the final rankings came out and I knew what the matchups were, I had a pretty good idea who we would play. I didn't know I had a pretty good idea which bowl we might end up in. I did not know who we were matched up with until the phone call.
Gary, the next question from Mike Halas.
Hi, Gary. Happy holidays to you.
Likewise.
Is it a significant number of football coaches affected by the COVID? How are the coaches coaching this week? How is all this going to go down before you take off for Nashville?
One of the things I talked to Kirk about this morning was just the plan for himself and anybody else that's going through the COVID infection and protocol. And what I'll tell you, Mike, is he has a plan, and we're ready to go. And obviously, he'll have to work from home until his quarantine isolation time is up, and he has a plan going forward, and we'll work that plan. And we'll leave on the 29th, and so anybody who is available to go on the 29th will be there in person, and we'll get ready to play a good Missouri team.
So is it a significant amount of football coaches who are affected by the virus?
There are coaches, staff, and student athletes included in football, but that's, as we've been doing since the beginning, that's as far as I'll go.
Next question, Gary, from Chad Leistico.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, Chad.
Happy holidays. I know it was a stressful couple of days, I'm sure. Well, maybe it wasn't stressful, but it would be for me to be a CFP chairman. Regarding how close you would be to having to pause workouts, what would it take between now and whenever? Once you get to that 5%, is that it? Can you kind of articulate what you're going to be watching here in the next few days as these tests come in?
Well, we have our medical team will make the determination, and they'll do it in conjunction with what you referenced, and that is the Big Ten protocol. So we'll be watching the overall rate, the two rates that have been identified. We have a infectious disease representative on our campus. We have our doctor, our team doctor. They'll be communicating with the Big Ten and with us. And it's just going to take, if we're still within the percentages that are allowed by the Big Ten, then we'll keep moving forward. If at any time we were to go higher than those percentages, then if the doctors shared that information with us, we'd have to go on pause, which has been the case throughout the country on occasion.
So if you go on pause, is that it for the bowl game, or would you look to reschedule, or how would that work?
Well, on pause might mean a few different things. On pause might be, is it for a couple of days? Depending on, is it student athletes? Is it staff members? I think all of that will have to be evaluated. The medical protocol established by the Big Ten will determine that. But the goal and the plan is to play in the bowl, and there haven't been any discussions about postponing or moving that date because we haven't reached that point of discussion. So just waiting. Everybody's coming back to campus today, and everybody will go through our testing protocol, and then we'll plan to resume practice unless there was some reason we couldn't related to COVID.
Gary, the next question from Scott Doctorman.
Yeah, Gary, Merry Christmas coming up to you and your family.
Likewise.
The last couple of weeks, especially regarding your side gig as CFP chairman, have been you've endured a lot of criticism. The system's endured a lot of criticism, and then one of your former colleagues, at Indiana, really kind of teed off on the system itself. How difficult was this for you on a personal level, knowing that you almost had to advocate for your biggest rival? You're the one team that was left behind probably would have helped you financially if they were in the playoff. And then finally, your team didn't have an advocate in the room because you weren't allowed to be in it. So how challenging was this on a personal level versus trying to remove yourself to be impartial as the Big Ten or as the CFP chair?
Well, a lot of questions in the question that you just asked. A couple of things. First of all, when I was invited to be on the committee, not yet the chair, I had conversations with Gene Smith and Barry Alvarez just to talk to them a little bit about how that went and how they found that very thing you're talking about, separating, being the athletic director at Iowa from being a member of the committee. Had great conversations with them. And then when I was invited to be the chair of the committee, I went back to the past chairs, all of whom I know, all of whom with whom I'm familiar, and asked them that question. How did you then take that to the next step? Remember, the chair has a few roles, but the chair has one vote out of 13. So that's the first thing. The chair doesn't have an extra vote. So one of 13, and you go through that process. The chair is the spokesperson. And now to the point of saying, when I'm speaking as the chair of the CFP selection committee, I'm speaking on behalf of 13 people. And so it's understood that the person speaking is going to receive a lot of criticism, but understanding personally that it's really a criticism toward the committee. And oftentimes it's a criticism not to the committee, but to the way that the system is set up, because the system is set up for the committee to identify and select the best 4 teams in the country and then rank the top 25. That system is determined by the commissioners and the executive director. The selection committee, upon which I serve, is tasked with the job of just selecting within that process. The one thing, and then you talked a little bit about, Indiana is in the Big Ten Conference. Iowa State is in our state. The only time I cannot be in the room is when the Iowa Hawkeyes are being discussed. And so I was involved in several discussions where Indiana and Iowa State were discussed, and Iowa was not being discussed. So I don't know. I think I tried to answer most of your questions within your question, Scott. I hope I covered most of them. But at the end of the day, point well taken. I take very seriously when I'm the spokesperson, I'm speaking on behalf of 13 people and not as the Iowa athletic director. And when I come back to campus, I'm the Iowa athletic director, but when I get asked questions about the CFP, I'm speaking on behalf of those 13 people again.
Gary, the next question from Mike O'Brien.
Hey, Gary, happy holidays.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike.
this hasn't necessarily been brought up since the last time we talked with you, kind of before football season, when we kind of knew what to expect in terms of fans. But in terms of getting the 8 games in and now a bowl game, obviously being televised, is now that you've known how that football season went, is the projection of the financial downfall? The last time we talked about this, you thought maybe it was a $20-30 million difference without fans, but still getting games back. Is that still the projection in terms of what the original estimate was of like 100 million? How much did the football season help now that we've neared the end here and, possibly have that one bowl game left?
Well, I don't think, I'm almost certain I've never said that the deficit was going to be 20 or 30 million. What I said originally.
Sorry. From what I remember, it was about, you had said approximately maybe like a $20-30 million bump from the 100, meaning it would be closer to 60 to 80.
Okay.
Football season.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, I should clarify.
No, that's all right. So when football, go way back to the summer, the minute football was declared that we weren't going to play at all, at that point, we knew our revenue was going to drop $100 million plus. With all the cuts we made and all the decisions we made in terms of salary reductions and furloughs and operating budget reductions, at that time, again, going way back to the beginning of this, we thought our deficit might run around 75 million. Now, once it was announced that we were going to be able to play football, but still not with fans, then we estimated, and I remember I went to the Board of Regents and I indicated that I gave them a broad range because I didn't know how many games we would or wouldn't be able to play, or if we'd have fans at any point in time. And I estimated at that time $40 to $60 million in deficit. Now that we've come this far in football, there have been several games in the Big Ten that have been canceled. Every game that's not played is a reduction in revenue from television. We know we weren't able to have fans. We know a little bit more about how all the other revenue streams related to football. We still don't know basketball because basketball is still being played. My estimate today still has a range, but I'm in talking with our CFO, and working with campus. My estimate today is somewhere between $55 and $65 million deficit. So that was a long answer, but that's where it is today. Now we still have the bowl season to play out, and we still have men's basketball games to be played, and that will have an impact when it's all said and done. But I'm estimating somewhere between 55 and 65 million is going to be our deficit, which is when I say those numbers and I think about our revenue and I think about moving forward, that's still a huge deficit that we're going to have to be working through probably for the next decade.
Thank you for the update.
Gary, the next question from Scott Docterman.
If the players come back and they test positive, considering now that there's a break before the spring semester, are they just going to be merely sent home?
We haven't had that discussion, and I certainly would talk with Kirk and we would put together a plan, but haven't gone down that path, Scott.
Gary, the next question from Chad Leistico.
Any discussion about basketball fans later in the season, if the vaccine flourishes here? And also, is this bowl game a moneymaker for you guys or a money loser if everything goes as planned?
I'll take the first question first. Felt horrible that we weren't able to have fans in Kinnick for multiple reasons. I mean, we just talked about the finances, but for our fans not being able to watch, for the players not being able to have the fans watch, felt horrible about that. Feel terrible that we're having success. It was a successful football season to date. Lisa's team and Fran's team are off to a good start, and we're having success. And so not having to have them in Carver just continues to be hard to work through and deal with. while the vaccine is coming and when none of us know how that's going to work out, I just don't, from what I'm hearing, and if anybody's hearing differently, I just don't know that we're going to have relief from the pandemic before basketball season ends or wrestling season ends. Or so at this point, I'm not optimistic, but I sure am hopeful. I would love to have fans back in Carver, even if it was a limited number to start with. But as of today, there's not yet any date by which I see us hearing about some sort of relief.
Gary, the next question from Mike Halas.
The Big Ten's got 4 basketball games on Christmas. Matt Painter, the Purdue coach, just said a little while ago that this was something that Purdue's players were for. Is it something your players were for? How do you feel about it? What made it a good idea in the Big Ten's mind?
Well, to your question, the first question, Fran and I talked about this going back whenever the decision was being presented. And we knew that in this year's environment that our student athletes were going to have to be on campus and would likely be in a practice bubble during that holiday break or that holiday period anyway. And so I know Fran talked to the student athletes and gave me the green light, the thumbs up that there was interest in playing. And so that was the first step. And we actually have a big week coming up with Purdue and then at Minnesota on Christmas and then come back and have Northwestern. So in the next 7 days, we're going to have 3 games, and it is during the holiday, but I know our student athletes want to play and are excited to play in these games. So Mike, I can't remember if that answered all of your question. Was there a second part to your question? I can't remember.
You'll need to unmute that, Mike.
I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Gary, I see one more hand in the group chat, so 2 more hands. We'll finish with 2 more questions. The first from Scott Docterman.
Gary, with the way everything's gone over the last 9 months as a country, campus, football, and specifically with football over the last 6 months, what's kind of your viewpoint of the way Kirk handled this, the season, handled the off season, the season, and the trajectory of the football program right now?
I think as Kirk has during the 15 years I've known him, whatever comes his way, whatever comes our way, he thinks it through. He listens and he comes up with a plan. And so through very difficult circumstances, going back to the pandemic and our conversations from March until we were able to start playing, and obviously in between that, the very difficult discussions about race and discrimination and what was going on and the things that former players and current players were saying, and then having very difficult conversations with the current players and the former players and working through that every day, preparing for the season, starting off 0-2 and for that team to stay together. And certainly the student athletes get the credit for that, but so do the coaches. And then ultimately the leadership comes from Kirk. So very challenging situation, but I feel like Kirk has handled it very, very well. And we'll just continue to work through issues as they come to us. A work in progress always, but as he has over the 15 years I've worked with him, he's thoughtful, he cares, and he comes up with a plan and then works the plan. And that's what he was doing throughout during these past 9 months.
All right, Gary, the final question this morning from Chad Leistico.
It's my fault for asking double questions, but you didn't get to the other one. Is it a bowl game, a money maker, or money loser for you guys?
I knew there was a question in there from one of you that I didn't quite get to.
No worries.
The bowls will be a money loser when it's all said and done throughout the Big Ten. But we don't look at it as a win or loss, Chad. What we did is we sat down with our bowl partners collectively, and we said to them, and they said to us, that this was going to be an extraordinary year. And on our campuses, in our conference, and at the bowl sites, everybody was trying to work through, have an experience, have a bowl experience, have a game, knowing that it wasn't going to be financially a positive, but also knowing that we have long-term relationships with many of these bowls, and all of them we have several years still remaining. So as partners, we wanted to work together to make it as good a possibility and as good a situation for both partners as we could. So there will not be money made, but the goal is to either have zero money lost or have it at least be the least impactful as possible financially.
All right, Gary, that wraps it up. Thanks for your time this morning.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Again,
Thank you.
Happy holidays, and however you celebrate it, for those of you who celebrate it, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Have a good one.
For those of you hanging around, be reminded that we have Lisa Bluter today at 1 o'clock and Fran McCaffrey at 2 o'clock. And I believe players for both teams follow the respective coaches. So we will hope to see you then. Take care.